There are moments in life when the weight of the world feels unbearable, when you're giving your best, yet nothing seems to change. You smile on the outside, but deep down you're wondering, does anyone truly see me? Does God even care? I want you to hear me today. Yes, He does, more than you realize, more than you can comprehend. God cares about the battles you don't talk about. He cares about the nights you cry yourself to sleep. He cares about the dreams that feel like they are slipping away. And today, He is reminding you, you are not alone. You are not forgotten. And your story is far from over. One of the biggest lies the enemy tells us is that God is distant, that He's too busy, too far away to care about our daily struggles. But let me remind you of something powerful. God is the God who sees. Genesis 16:13 tells the story of Hagar, a woman who was cast out, abandoned, left to wander in the wilderness with no hope. But in her lowest moment, God met her there. She called Him El Roi, the God who sees me. Maybe you feel like Hagar, lost, abandoned, and unsure of what's next. She was cast out into the wilderness, carrying the weight of rejection and fear. But in that place of isolation, God showed up. He called her by name, reminded her that she was seen, and provided for her when she had nothing left. And the same God who met Hagar in her wilderness is the same God who sees you in yours. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. The God who saw Hagar sees you too. Right now, God sees you. He sees the pain you've been carrying. He sees the silent prayers you've whispered. He sees the effort you've put in when nobody else noticed. And He cares. You are not an accident. You are not an afterthought. You are deeply known and deeply loved by a God who never loses sight of you. Maybe you're walking through a tough season. Maybe life has thrown curveballs you never saw coming. And the enemy wants to use those struggles to define you, to make you think you are your failures, your pain, your disappointments. But let me tell you something. Your struggle is not your identity. Your worth is not measured by what you've lost. Your value is not determined by what you've been through. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." God isn't waiting for you to have it all together before He cares. He cares for you in the middle of your mess. He cares for you while you're still figuring things out, and He's not done with you yet. Here's what I need you to understand. The very thing you think is breaking you might be the thing God is using to build you. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, locked in a prison. But what the enemy meant for evil, God used for good. Here's an additional 8-paragraph section that seamlessly integrates with your script while adding fresh depth and encouragement. So many of us live as if God's love is something we have to earn. We think, if I pray more, if I do better, if I fix my mistakes, then maybe God will care about me. But that's not how His love works. God's love is not a paycheck for good behavior. It's a gift freely given. Romans 5:8 tells us, "But God demonstrates His own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us." That means He loved you before you ever lifted a hand to serve Him. He loved you before you got things right. And He still loves you now, right where you are. His love is unconditional, unwavering, and unshakable. Maybe you're in a season where you feel exhausted. You've been trying to hold everything together, but it feels like life keeps throwing more than you can handle. Here's the good news. You were never meant to carry it all on your own. 2 Corinthians 12:9 reminds us, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Your weakness is not a barrier to God's power. It's an invitation for Him to step in and be your strength. So instead of fighting alone, surrender. Let Him lift you, sustain you, and remind you that His grace is more than enough. One of the hardest lessons in faith is learning to trust God's timing. We want answers now. We want breakthroughs immediately. But sometimes God's greatest work happens in the waiting. Think about David, anointed as king, yet he spent years in the wilderness before stepping into his destiny. Or Sarah, who waited decades for the promise of a son. Delays are not denials. What God has spoken over your life will come to pass in His perfect time. Isaiah 60:22 says, "At the right time, I, the Lord, will make it happen." Hold on. Keep trusting. Your waiting is not wasted. The enemy's greatest weapon is discouragement. He whispers lies, saying, "It's never going to change. You might as well give up." But quitting is exactly what he wants you to do, because he knows what's on the other side of your perseverance. Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." You may be tired, but keep going. You may not see the results yet, but keep believing. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. You are not just another face in the crowd to God. He knows your name. He knows your story. He knows every detail of your life, your struggles, your dreams, your fears, and He calls you His own. Isaiah 43:1 says, "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine." That means you are not forgotten. You are chosen. You are His. And when life tries to make you feel invisible, remember the God of the universe knows you personally. Right now, it may not make sense. The struggle, the heartbreak, the unanswered questions, it all feels too much. But what if I told you that God can take what the enemy meant for harm and turn it into something beautiful? James 1:2-3 tells us, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." Your pain is not pointless. It's producing something in you: strength, endurance, faith. And one day, you'll look back and see that even in the hardest moments, God was shaping you for something greater. You don't have to fight this battle alone. You don't have to carry the weight by yourself. God is fighting for you, even when you can't see it. Exodus 14:14 says, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." That means when you feel surrounded, God is already making a way. When you feel weak, He is your strength. You are not defenseless. Heaven is on your side. At the end of the day, you have a choice. Will you let fear control you, or will you trust the one who holds your future? Will you let the pain define you, or will you believe that God is still writing your story? Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." You may be in a difficult chapter, but that doesn't mean the story is over. God is still writing. What if your setback is a setup for something greater? What if your struggle is the soil where your faith is growing? Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Not some things, not just the good things, all things. That means even in the pain, even in the waiting, God is working. No matter what you're facing, choose trust over fear. Choose faith over doubt. Choose to believe that the God who cares for you is working all things for your good. I know it's hard when you can't see the way forward. I know it's frustrating when answers don't come quickly. But don't let the silence make you doubt His presence. God is closer than you think, working behind the scenes in ways you can't even imagine. So today, let go of the fear. Let go of the anxiety. Let go of the doubt that whispers, maybe God has forgotten me. Because the truth is, He never will. If this message has spoken to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, no matter what you're facing, God